Your phone throws up a simple message. Brutal. Almost insulting in how obvious it is. You need to wake up in 4 hours. You see it. You understand it. You know exactly how tomorrow is going to feel. And yet, you don't put the phone down. One more video. One more scroll. One more minute. Funny thing is, the strange part isn't that you're making a bad decision. Humans have always made bad decisions. The strange part is that you can watch yourself making one while it's happening. You can see the train heading toward the wall and stay on board. Imagine a deer spotting a lion and thinking, you know what? Let me get a little closer. Imagine a bird deciding to tear apart its own nest. Imagine a wolf ignoring dinner because it's busy staring at a glowing rectangle. Ridiculous. And yet, somehow, we do the human version of that every day. We sabotage our sleep. We sabotage our health. We sabotage our relationships. And then comes the deeper question. Why do we know we're doing it? Wait, how can the same brain be both the warning signal and the danger itself? A war inside one skull. Instinct against instinct. Desire against knowledge. The strangest battle humans fight isn't against nature. It's against ourselves. Now step back and look at this through the lens of evolution. Natural selection is supposed to favor behaviors that keep organisms alive long enough to reproduce, which makes the human brain seem oddly self-defeating. Why would evolution build a creature that procrastinates? Why build a creature that damages relationships it desperately wants to keep? Why build a creature that gets hooked on things that hurt it? And why build a creature that repeats mistakes it already knows will lead to misery? At first glance, none of it makes sense. Most animals run into trouble because they don't have enough information. A gazelle doesn't know exactly where the predator is hiding. A bird doesn't know the storm is coming. But humans face a different problem entirely. We often know. We predict. We understand. Then we do it anyway. Not ignorance. Awareness. Not confusion. Knowledge. That's the paradox. Human beings don't just make mistakes. Human beings can see their mistakes coming. They can forecast them. Sometimes they can explain them. And then they walk straight into them. Which means self-sabotage isn't simply a character flaw. It isn't simply a moral problem. It's a biological mystery. Researchers estimate that our species emerged somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 years ago. And somewhere along that journey, something extraordinary happened. The human mind began doing something few other minds could do. It started visiting the future. A hunter no longer saw only the animals standing in front of him. He could picture tomorrow's hunt, next season's drought, the winter after that, maybe even the next decade. Imagine what that must have felt like. For billions of years, life mostly reacted to what was happening right now. Then, one species started rehearsing events that hadn't happened yet. That changed everything. Food could be stored, plans could be made, alliances could be formed. The future became a place humans could mentally travel to before they ever arrived. An incredible advantage. But advantages have side effects. Because the moment you can imagine success, you can imagine failure. The moment you can imagine safety, you can imagine disaster. The moment you can imagine acceptance, you can imagine rejection. And suddenly, emotions appear that make little sense in the animal world. Anxiety, regret, shame, fear of failure. Researchers believe these experiences are closely connected to our ability to mentally simulate the future. Wait, think about how bizarre that is. A deer can be wounded by a lion. A human can be wounded by a possibility. Not by something that happened, by something that might happen. Not by reality, by imagination. The ability to picture a better future created a problem evolution had rarely encountered before. A creature haunted by futures that never arrive. Around 8,000 years ago, in Mesopotamia, one of the earliest farmers faced a challenge that would have seemed strange to a hunter. Plant now, wait months, hope later. His survival depended on things he couldn't see yet, seeds hidden underground, rain that hadn't fallen, harvests that existed only in his imagination. For perhaps the first time on a large scale, human beings had to live with their attention stretched far into the future, and your brain still carries that ancient machinery. Researchers have identified networks in the brain, including the default mode network, that become active when we imagine future versions of ourselves. It's a remarkable system. It helps you save money, build a family, choose a career, work toward goals that may take years. But here's the catch. The same system that helps you plan can also trap you. The same system that prepares you can also exhaust you. The same system that predicts outcomes can also spiral out of control. A wolf sees danger and runs. A human sees danger and starts running simulations. What if this happens? What if I fail? What if I choose wrong? Then the brain runs another simulation, and another, and another. 3 weeks later, the threat may be gone. The thinking isn't. This is where overthinking begins. This is where procrastination often takes root. This is where paralysis by analysis quietly grows. Because when the future becomes vivid enough, action itself can start feeling dangerous. One of the strangest truths about the human brain is this: your greatest planning tool can become your greatest delay. That Mesopotamian farmer needed the future to survive. But the brain that learned to live ahead of time sometimes struggles to live here, right now. The brain that plans ahead can also become trapped ahead. Now let's jump to ancient Greece. Picture a young warrior standing among his peers. His greatest fear isn't hunger. It isn't cold. It isn't injury. It's humiliation. Because at some point, human beings started living in two worlds at once: the physical world and the social world. For most animals, survival is mostly about protecting the body. For humans, survival gradually became tied to reputation, status, belonging, and identity. What other people thought of you could shape opportunities, alliances, even your future. And over time, humans began carrying something invisible, something surprisingly fragile: a story. A story about who they were. A story about who they wanted to become. A story about how they hoped others would see them. And the moment identity enters the picture, a strange new form of self-sabotage appears. People start protecting the story, even when protecting the story hurts them. Someone refuses help because asking would damage their self-image. Someone refuses to admit they're wrong because pride won't allow it. Someone stays in a job they hate because leaving feels like failure. Someone stays in a toxic relationship because walking away would force them to rewrite who they think they are. Notice how strange that is. Animals protect bodies. Humans often protect identities. Wait, isn't that one of the oddest things about our species? A creature smart enough to recognize suffering can still choose suffering to defend an idea. Not survival. Self-image. Not flesh. Narrative. Sometimes the person causing you the most pain isn't another person. It's a version of yourself you've become attached to. And if you're still with me, subscribe, because what comes next gets even stranger. We're about to answer the most uncomfortable question in this entire story. why your brain can know exactly what's right and still choose the opposite. It's 2026. An office worker in Tokyo sits awake long after midnight. He already knows the consequences. He knows lack of sleep hurts him. He knows fast food hurts him. He knows endless doom scrolling hurts him. Information isn't the problem. So what is? To answer that, we need to go back not centuries, but thousands of generations. Your brain evolved in a world defined by scarcity. Scarce sugar, scarce stimulation, scarce information. When our ancestors stumbled across something rewarding, taking advantage of it was usually the smart move. Eat the fruit. Follow the clue. Investigate the novelty. Those instincts helped people survive. The problem is that evolution moves slowly. The environment doesn't. Today, sugar is everywhere. Entertainment never ends. Information arrives faster than anyone can process it. The reward systems that once protected us now face a constant flood of stimulation. And modern technology is exceptionally good at exploiting those ancient circuits. Not because your brain became weaker, because the world changed faster than your brain could. A world where rewards were rare became a world where rewards are limitless. A world where temptation ended became a world where temptation follows you in your pocket. That's the trap. Ancient instincts, futuristic environment. The operating system is old. The hardware is old. The world running on it is brand new. And sometimes the oldest parts of your brain still behave as though they're wandering across an ancient landscape while scrolling through a 21st century screen. At this point, you might be thinking, hold on, are humans actually the only species that do this? Not entirely. Nature has its own strange examples. Salmon push themselves upstream until their bodies give out. Male beetles sometimes charge rivals that are bigger, stronger, and almost certain to win. Researchers have observed some primates withdrawing socially after defeat and, in some cases, even refusing food. From a distance, that can look a little like self-destruction. So maybe the behavior itself isn't unique. But look closer. A salmon doesn't spend the next month replaying the decision. A beetle doesn't stare into the darkness wondering where things went wrong. A monkey doesn't build an entire life story around one failed social encounter. That's the difference. Animals can experience consequences. Humans can relive them. Humans can anticipate them. Humans can tell stories about them. Not just action, interpretation. Not just pain, meaning. The behavior may not be unique. The awareness is. The easiest answer to this mystery sounds convincing. Humans self-sabotage because humans are irrational. Simple. Neat. Case closed. Except it doesn't survive contact with reality. Because the same species that procrastinates built mathematics. The same species that stays in toxic relationships built cities. The same species that doom scrolls until 2 a.m. built spacecraft, the internet, and modern science. Clearly, irrationality isn't the full explanation. Wait, what if we've been looking at this backwards? What if self-sabotage isn't evidence that human intelligence failed? What if it's evidence of what human intelligence costs? Think about it. A brain capable of simulating the future can get trapped inside imagined futures. A brain capable of creating identity can become trapped inside identity. A brain capable of searching for meaning can become lost in meaning. The features and the bugs come from the same source. That's the paradox at the center of the human experience. Self-sabotage doesn't appear despite our intelligence. It appears because of it. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Human intelligence opened doors no other species could open. But every doorway casts a shadow, and self-sabotage is one of them. Think about the last thing you've been putting off. Not next year, not last decade. The thing you've been avoiding recently. The conversation, the application, the workout, the decision. Or maybe it's something smaller. Maybe it's simply going to bed when you know you should. Maybe you've looked at those moments and seen weakness. Maybe you've treated them as evidence that something is wrong with you. Maybe you've wondered why everyone else seems to have their life together while you're still fighting yourself. But what if that's the wrong conclusion? Because only a mind capable of seeing multiple futures can feel pulled between them. Only a mind capable of imagining failure can suffer from failure before it happens. Only a mind capable of constructing an identity can become trapped by one. You are not fighting a simple animal instinct. You're negotiating between competing futures, competing stories, competing versions of yourself. That's why the conflict feels so exhausting. Part of you wants comfort. Part of you wants growth. Part of you wants certainty. And all three are trying to grab the steering wheel at the same time. Your inner conflict is not proof of a broken mind. It's proof of a uniquely human one. The struggle is the signature. The conflict is the clue. Now return to that moment. 2:17 in the morning. The phone still glowing. 4 hours left before the alarm. At first, it looked like a simple scene. One person losing a battle against themselves. But now it looks different. Because hidden inside that ordinary moment is something that barely existed through most of life's history. A creature that can act, while watching itself act. A creature that can choose, while questioning the choice. A creature that can make a mistake, while already imagining how to fix it. Think about how extraordinary that is. Across more than 4 billion years of life on Earth, millions of species have appeared and disappeared. Few could imagine tomorrow. Fewer could doubt themselves. And only one species seems capable of building a life, tearing pieces of it apart, understanding why it happened, and then trying to build it again. Not perfection, self-revision. Not instinct versus intelligence. Intelligence wrestling with itself. That's the tragedy of being human. But it's also the gift. Because the same mind that creates the problem can create the solution. The same imagination that scares you can guide you. The same brain that leads you off the path can find a new one. The same mind that breaks your path can rebuild it. You are the only animal that can rewrite itself. Subscribe.